We are live. First loss of the season, Mike. But like you said,
Yeah,
they covered. So
they did cover. So good teams win, great teams cover. So Rutgers covered the 24.5 point spread here. But I felt like the game was pretty close for at least three quarters. It
yeah,
was really just until the end there that things fell apart. And I know I was tweeting a lot about the officiating, but I don't even think that if three or four calls got reversed that we were going to win this game. I think all the momentum really died on that first penalty call on Holland Pierce, that hold on the Menungai 27-yard rush on the second offensive drive. We have that awesome long score by Christian Dremel to start the game. I was super high on the adrenaline of that. They go 3-and-out on the following drive. We get the ball at our own 25, we run the ball to midfield, and then the phantom pass or the phantom holding call happens, pushes us back to a 1st and 20. And this offense just isn't designed to
no.
convert first and 20.
That was
So
a
I thought we were going to
40-yard
have a little bit
flag,
of
by the way,
yeah,
because they would have had the ball
brutal.
like at like the 45 or something like that after the run, and it pushed
Yep.
us all the way back to the 10. That's how big a flag
Yeah,
that
so that was
was.
a big bummer.
Yeah.
Yep. And Menungai really got held in check all game. He had 11 rushes for 27 yards on the day. Gavin was our leading rusher at 6 rushes for 28 yards. I thought he had a great game, honestly. I think the stat line doesn't look great. He went 11 for 21 for 180 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Like I said, 28 yards on the ground. I thought he made a lot of good decisions early in the game, though, especially in RPO situations.
Yeah.
He didn't really put the ball in harm's way, and I don't really put the interception on him either because the play call was terrible.
Yeah.
Like 4th and 2, you've done these like RPO style runs on every third or fourth and short all day. And then you call a screen that's like not blocked well. If you notice, there's 2 or 3 linemen who are just kind of like flailing, trying to get their arms on somebody for that play, and it's unfortunate that
It
it
was
went the
fluke.
opposite way for 6.
Yeah. That was a
It
fluke.
definitely was a fluke.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm kind of rambling here. How do you want to structure this discussion?
No, I mean that's yeah, that's a good way to kick it off, and then we can start at the very beginning and go through it because it wasn't like we're going to talk about 4 quarters of football. The game was
Yep.
really over. I actually put a game over right after the interception for the touchdown. You knew the game was over. That
Yep.
was it. That
Yep.
was the game, and anything that happened after that. Because really, if you look at it, 17-7, let's say they get the first down, let's say they score, they're now one score with a little bit more than what a few minutes to go in the third quarter. I mean, that's a real football
Yeah.
game if they score on that drive. And that game
Yep.
just that score right there that went the other way just it was big. I don't even know how to even use what adjective to say how big that was, but it was what it is. It was what it was. So let's go ahead and by the way, we're going to keep an eye on the chat, and we appreciate everybody who has already gotten the head start on us as usual. So appreciate you guys joining us here on the Rutgers Football Channel for post game number 4. Wagner coming up next. I know we didn't talk a lot about Wagner at last week's show, so not that we're going to talk a lot about him on this week's show either. But what I did like about seeing Wagner when I put them on the board there as our next opponent, Mike, was the fact that couldn't have been scheduled any better. Because that's
Yeah.
what the team needs. It's just, hey, you know what? We go right back to getting a W and go to 4-1 and look at the schedule and realize that, hey, you know what? We got a shot here. We got a realistic shot for a bowl season.
Yeah, I agree. I think it helps too when your opponents have down seasons or in some cases just totally falling apart, like Michigan State. Wisconsin looks vulnerable. Iowa looks vulnerable. They're both road games in the Big Ten, so they're never gimmies. But Michigan State, I feel like you could kind of say that Rutgers really should win that game. I'd be surprised if they were anything less than a touchdown favorite in that one. Indiana hasn't really looked that great. Maryland's looked a little worse than you expect, but they're going to be a tough game. Rutgers has seemingly always struggled against Maryland with Talia there, but there are at least 6 opportunities for wins on this schedule, and 3 more of them are ahead of us. I don't think I think it's basically as close to a lock as you can get that they're going to win against Wagner next week.
Yeah.
It'll be nice to clean up some things that I thought they did poorly today. They can clean up against an inferior opponent before you go on the road to Wisconsin, and just I don't think this game really changes my outlook on the team at all.
No.
You would have liked to see it be more competitive late in the game, but like you said, that pick six happens with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left in the third quarter. And say we go for the field goal there, I think it was a 46-yarder. It would have been a 17-10 game. Say we convert, and then that's one of the other frustrating things is Dremel gets held on the previous play on 3rd and 8 when he makes that acrobatic shark jumping out of the water type catch.
Yes.
The play before that was for some reason they called taunting on the field, but then they picked it up. The referee 6 feet away from the play.
Yeah.
And that was the one where Gavin threw it about 4 feet above Isaiah Washington's head. The corner pushes him and then does the incompletion in his face. I know it's a discretionary call, but if you're the referee right next to that play and you throw the flag, how do you get convinced by the rest of the crew to pick that up? That should be your call. It's kind of if you're the referee on the baseline and you say the guy steps out, the guy at half court coming and say, no, he didn't step out.
Yeah, sure.
I just don't understand overturning that. But
well, look, that's why I said actually in a few other games post games we did, I thought Rutgers, they were getting a lot of breaks with the officiating. Officiating is never good, but they were getting a lot of breaks. And now when you go into the big house against Jim Harbaugh, you're not going to get any breaks. It's going to be all against you. And that's exactly what happened. Let's dive into it because that first touchdown pass play was so awesome. It was so great to see.
Yeah.
And what was also awesome about it was that it was pass, touchdown. There wasn't any running.
They really just showed right out of the gate, we trust Gavin in this game to bring us a win on the road. And I thought he played decent enough. He didn't really make any big mistakes. He had a couple bad throws, but he had more good throws than bad throws in this game.
And he's always going to have bad throws. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, finally did, but still, it's going to happen. And that was a fluke. So, what are you going to do? All right, so they go up 7-0. And like you said, they get Michigan to go 3 and out. And that was after that really weird decision for that kickoff, which I'm never a big fan of. It always seems to backfire when you do those weird kickoffs. You give Michigan the ball at the 36, but didn't matter. 3 and out. Nice sack by Powell. Was able to trip McCarthy before he broke it out of there. And then came the big play you were talking about to start the second drive, the Monangai 27-yard run. And that was negated on Pierce's holding call. So that was a 40-yard about difference in yardage. But Monangai had 16 yards on the first 2 carries of that drive. After that, got into a 3rd and 4. And what happened? Pierce got called again for false start. And it's Pierce. Come on. We haven't seen him really do anything bad this year. And the first couple of big plays of the game on the same drive. And you knew that, I didn't really care. I didn't think it was a bad deal to just go ahead and punt the ball, run the ball, and just get the hell out of there before anything bad happened. But then Michigan went down and scored. And they got the touchdown and tied the game. And it was 7-7, pretty much just like that. But what started was to me on this drive was the story of the game, because they had a 3rd and 2, and then Edwards had that big gain where he's in motion, and I don't know if you were watching, picking it up too, but I'm going, nobody's on him over there. And then as he moved to the other side, nobody was following him, and he picks up a big gain, and then they had the flea flicker. But I just want to bring up the point of the 3rd and 2, because how many times did Michigan have 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and we had 3rd and 1, and we couldn't get it, and they just kept getting it.
That is the storyline of the game for me, is that Rutgers was terrible on 3rd and 4th down, and Michigan was great. So Rutgers was 3 of 10 on 3rd down, and they were 0 for 3 on 4th down. Michigan, 8 of 13 on 3rd down, 2 for 2 on 4th down. Jeez. On their second touchdown drive, they converted a 3rd and 6 from their own, I believe, 19-yard line. They completed a 3rd and 8, and they completed a 3rd and 7 in the red zone to score a touchdown. So they were able to. We weren't able to put a lot of pressure on McCarthy. I think we had 1 or 2 sacks on the day. I know Wes Bailey had one. We might have had one other, but we weren't able to get consistent pressure on McCarthy. And when we did, he was either able to escape it using his legs, or he was able to go to his second or third read and get to the open man. I think McCarthy had a really good game, and our defense kind of let us down a bit in my eyes. I thought we played pretty well for most of the game, but we just had those lapses. Like you said, we had
worst times,
just blown coverages, or maybe it was just the wrong play call for the situation. If you see the running back like Edwards in motion, I think it should be kind of on Schiano to call a timeout there on a third down to get the personnel right, or to maybe just like he sees it and it's kind of like not telling your co-pilot when you're driving that the car stopped in front of them, they're not paying attention. It's like sometimes you just kind of have to interfere, and he didn't. So I do think this is a game that the coaches performed worse than the players, in all honesty, because you have a myriad of bad calls on third and short and fourth and short. You have some total blown assignments on defense, and we'll have to watch the film in terms of whose fault that was, but that could just be a terrible play call in that scenario. But I do think coaching let us down. We got out-coached today, especially the Michigan offensive coordinator versus Joe Harris-Simiak. And I'm a big Joe Harris-Simiak guy, but that was not overall an effective game plan we were calling on defense. And I do want to call out a few super chats here. P. Matapoisit gave us a $2 donation, so thank you very much. And HGJ threw a super chat out. He said, F the refs, but Gavin looked like he took a step forward today. I agree. I thought Gavin played really well, even though the stats might not be a clear indication of that. I thought Gavin kept us in this game more than, was a deterrent. I don't think the interception was on him. I think that was a terrible play call by a guy who I thought has had a good season calling plays in Soraka. I just don't think it was anybody's day on the coaching staff, and they'll have a lot to. I'm sure Greg will have a lot of very long talks with the whole staff this week.
And it might also just be one of those things where, not that I'm alleviating the blame, but it's such a huge talent discrepancy between two teams.
Yes, yeah,
and it's really hard to, because like you said, I don't know. We're not in the room. We don't know what's going on. We don't know why they're calling the plays and who's maybe not taking responsibility on the field to make sure the plays are successful. So, but yeah, it is what it is. It was definitely not their best coaching day, no question, and they've done a really good job to this point. And you were mentioning how Wimsatt had done a pretty good job on the decisions, the run pass options. I mean, especially the run to either hand it off or take it himself options. He had the 3rd and 4 run on first down on the following drive after they tied the game up. Then he had that 15-yard run right after that. Then he had that 2nd and 9 pass to Jackson, which was nice, and everything is rolling along nicely. But here's one of the first really bad, like, what are the officials doing that screwed their entire drive? Last play of the first quarter, they hand the ball off to Monangai. They blow the whistle.
Yeah.
When clearly the pile had not even come close to stopping yet, and the pile moves past the first down marker. And I'm not, look, maybe if you want to say Michigan held up because of the whistle, fine, whatever you want to say it, but we still would have either had a first down or been right next to the first down. Instead, that's not what happened. We wound up with a 4th and 1 on the first play of the second quarter, and then we got stuffed. But the legal procedure, we got lucky on Michigan, and we wound up kicking the 51-yard field goal that was missed. So,
yep. We did miss one thing that I want to shout out to, that Flynn Appleby 75-yard punt.
Oh, yeah.
It was getting a lot of national press. You saw a lot of Barstool guys, a lot of fantasy experts tweeting about it. And for those of you who either didn't see it or want a refresher, Rutgers punted, I want to say from their own like 18-yard line. Michigan didn't really put a whole lot of pressure on Flynn Appleby. So what did he do? He did the Aussie style, long rollout, where he rolled out probably for about 4 seconds before he actually punted it, and he just launched this nuke of a knuckleballer that rolled down to the 6-yard line, totally flipping the field. And that's kind of still like, I felt like, okay, this is another situation where we're gonna, make them drive the length of the field, and of course they scored to tie it on.
Yeah.
It was like an 8-play drive too. I want to say like 8 plays, like 94 yards. That was the one that they had like you said, the Edwards completion for like 30 yards.
Yes.
They had the flea flicker for another 30. So anyway,
Yeah. It's
7-play drive.
It's unfortunate because of the punt, but yeah,
Yep.
he has done a really good job. I mean,
Yep.
we're very fortunate to have found another really good punter. We're not going to dismiss, of course, Mr. Corsack, but he has done a really good job. And by the way, one of these punts he is going to take off.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised that Corsack didn't take off more when he was here. I think he only had the one against Nebraska in like 2018 or 2019 where he actually kept it. But, when you're rolling out that long, and a lot of these guys played Aussie rules football, so they're used to actually like taking a hit and running upfield.
Sure.
And they got some speed behind them. They never really called. I don't know if it was because they're too valuable to get hurt, but they never called the fakes. They've thrown more passes on fake punts than they have done on runs. But I thought the thing that made that early whistle even more egregious is later in the game. They clearly were letting Michigan just like run those piles for forever. Yes. And then Blake Corum clearly fumbles on that one pile they had to push. Yes. And then they called him down. They don't even review it.
Yep.
And that's just another instance of these refs being god awful today. But anyway.
Absolutely.
Onward.
That was a huge one, and it changed. And that 51-yard field goal, by the way, was really, really close. That was not a bad effort by Patel.
They were sending out push notifications on the different like sports apps. Like ESPN sent out that he kicked the field goal and was good, and I think Fantasy Sport, one of the other fantasy apps, they sent push notifications saying he made the field goal. So that's how it looked on TV. I thought he made it, but upon like the other view where they kind of position it underneath the goalpost, it was clear that he missed it.
Yeah,
but it looked true from the long view.
It did, and that stadium in general, with I don't know what it is. Maybe it's all the colors by the fan. It is real tough to follow the ball. Whenever anybody kicks it there. So that was that was one of them that was too bad, because let's think about it. If he makes that, now Schiano is thinking, all right, he can make a 51-yarder. Now maybe he doesn't go for it on 4th down. Maybe he goes and kicks the field goal and then get the 3 points, and now all of a sudden, that's a completely different game. So again, there were so many little things that happened until the pick 6 that Rutgers was just there. If they had a break by the official, if they made just one other play, this game could have been completely different in the 4th quarter. So that's all we could really have asked for anyway, to tell you the truth. So, all right.
Yep.
So after that miss, Michigan gets the ball back. But what I liked about this defensive stand is that after Michigan got into field goal range, they had 3 plays. I think maybe a run and 2 passes or whatever. But Rutgers did a really good job of tackling and keeping guys from breaking tackles and just getting them down. So it was 4th and 2, and it forced Michigan to go for the field goal. And they decided to go for the field goal. Then they had the delay of the game, which was really weird, because I don't know if you noticed. I flipped back on my clock to see what the clock was. It was on 1 second. I was like, why did they call that delay a game for? They usually wait like a second after the 0, and they still give it to him. But that was a little weird. But I said, all right, we got a break, and then he missed the field goal. So.
Yeah, yep. And that was still a fairly easy field goal. I think it was still under 40 yards, that attempt.
It wasn't that far.
That was a miss it was a 42-yard attempt. It was a 37 that got pushed back to a 42.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought they did a really good job holding him to that field goal, get a break, and things were still looking pretty decent. But once again, a couple of bad 3rd and 4th down situations. Rutgers on the next drive, or I believe it was the next drive, Rutgers couldn't get a first down on 3rd and 1. But Michigan gets the ball. You get the first down on 4th and 1 at the Rutgers 23. And then Melton gives – and it looked to me up until this point, Melton was doing a pretty good job. I'd seen him covering Wilson, who's had a fantastic start to the season. And for the most part, Wilson was not open. And I'm thinking, well, maybe Melton turned the corner. Maybe this is the game that Melton turns the corner. And then he gives up a touchdown to some guy I've never heard of in my life on 3rd and long. Just a backbreaker. to give Michigan the
Yeah, and I
14-7
think you
lead.
hadn't heard of him because that was his first career touchdown catch,
Yeah,
unfortunately. But yeah, I think us as fans, we've kind of been conditioned to think that Max Melton is this shutdown corner, and I think game after game he proves that it could be as simple as one big error a game, but he's making those errors. He's allowing a big completion on him almost every game, and they called a DPI on that. So even
they
if the
did.
the receiver didn't catch it, it was still going to be a big play because of the penalty. Um, I don't know enough about defensive back play or cornerback play to kind of break down why exactly he's been struggling. I don't know if he's been taking a lot of gambles, sort of like Trayvon Diggs does, or if he's just taking a lot of bad route. I know on the touchdown catch, he doesn't even turn his head, and that's part of the reason the flag gets thrown. He's just running in coverage, and he sticks his arm up into the receiver, and the receiver still finds a way to make the catch. But yeah, it's a bummer because I think he's got all the physical attributes to be an NFL corner. I just think he's been struggling this year for reasons that are not totally known to me, and I don't pretend to know everything about defensive back play. So
Is he out of eligibility?
no, he's got another year if he wants it. I don't know. He might even have two because I believe he was class of 2020. Let me take a look.
Yeah, that is interesting because if he continues to play like this, and he could come back, I mean, he
Yeah,
might
he
want to do
has
that.
one more year of eligibility if he wants it after this year.
Yeah, he's got to pick up his game because at this point, I mean, we thought just a couple of years ago he was a lock to be at least a day two guy. Now it looks
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there's no way he's sniffing anything other than maybe fifth, sixth round, probably something like that. And he's probably getting an extra
yep.
round or two boost just because Shiano's coaching him. So
Yeah, I think he'll definitely get drafted wherever he leaves. It's just he was a guy that PFF ranked him as like the fourth best corner in football before entering this season, and I don't think he's played nearly that well to
no,
this season at least.
nope. And then Rochelle, after kind of the fair catch deal and all that was all right. Well, he hasn't dropped the ball, and I guess it's a learning process. I even mentioned this last week, and everything was looking good. Even on the first punt that he caught, it was almost like, oh, he's got a little cocky in him now. Where he caught
Yeah,
that with the
yep.
two guys in front of him, so maybe his confidence is. And then he has the bonehead play of calling fair catch, and he's not even 5 yards near the ball on the kickoff,
I
and
know.
that could have
Yeah,
been a
that
big
was. I mean,
disaster.
it
So
seems so underrated to have just a guy who's got a cool head in those situations. Like you don't even necessarily need to have a guy like a Devin Hester back there. And I say that I'm throwing Devin Hester's name out because everyone knows like, okay, big explosive returns. That's not really as big of a thing as it used to be in football. You just need a guy who's not going to make mistakes when there's three guys around him screaming at him, or, it's a high pressure kind of
yeah,
situation. Like I believe last week, Virginia Tech I think they returned a kick that would have probably trickled out of bounds right before they turned the ball over early in the game.
I
And
remember
even those
that.
kind of scenarios of knowing the situation where like this is probably trajectory wise gonna roll out of bounds. We're getting the ball at 35, but I got nervous, picked it up, and started running with it. Now I'm at the 12, taking a huge hit, similar to Rochelle today. He didn't take a huge hit, but he did cost us 10 to 15 yards by doing what he did.
Well, that could have been really bad because let's just say, I mean, first of all, lucky that Michigan didn't have three timeouts, and then they just left 2 seconds left, even though they didn't pick up a first down. So it
Yep.
worked out, and Shiano could have, I mean, Harbaugh could have called a timeout like with a minute to go and like kind of forced the action, or even he had the timeout left. I don't know. I was kind of surprised. I
Yeah.
was happy that he wasn't using that
Yep.
timeout. That was, I mean, this is Rutgers we're talking. This isn't Ohio State. I mean, what do you think? We're going to go 97 yards in like 30 seconds? So
Yeah. Yep. Not happening.
very surprised that we got away with that. Anyway, third quarter, and once again, Michigan on the drive that kicked the field goal. They had a 3rd and 1. First down run by Corum. They had a 4th and 1. McCarthy held on to it, picked up the first down, but then the sack by Bailey put an end to the drive on 3rd and 9, and Michigan had to settle for the field goal. and it was 17-17. And then the next drive,
17-7.
excuse me,
17-7.
17-7.
You said 17-17.
Oh, okay, 17-7. And then the next drive was the last drive of the game, really. That was the game. That was the drive where they looked good. They got down in, they got the pass interference from on Michigan, which was lucky because that would have been 3rd and long, and that would have been punt.
Yep. Yeah, because that was 2nd and 15, and it was a play that, at best we're getting 7-8 yards out of, and setting up a 3rd and long.
Yeah.
And they committed a bonehead thing.
So we got a break, and then we had that couple plays, including pass to Jackson, and then you mentioned the Dremel 8-yard catch on 3rd and 10. Could have been pass interference, instead it wasn't. And the 4th and 2 screen interception, pick six, touchdown, game over. So.
Yep. And again, that was a play call that never should have happened. Like I thought all of the 3rd and short and 4th and short calls on the day, for the most part, were pretty awful.
Imagination.
I don't know why we can't run power and mix it up a bit. I don't know why we can't, do something that Gavin's more comfortable with. Like, how many screens have we thrown up to that point in the game? 0.
Yeah, I don't remember many screens this year.
Yeah, so why break it out now, like in that kind of situation? Like, he was doing really well on the outbreaking stuff towards the sidelines. Why not run that? Even the stuff he struggled with a lot of this year in terms of like the slants towards the middle of the field, I thought he did better than he had all season. He's clearly making progression in the system. Why call a screen there? Because you're just outmatched. Like, the speed across the board on Michigan is way faster than Rutgers on offense.
Yeah.
And they swarmed to the ball, and you saw it. They didn't have a shot in hell of even getting any positive yardage on that, let alone a first down. So
that's one of those plays where it looks a lot better when you draw it up, and maybe you think you have the talent that you don't. And it's like because you're asking Wimsatt and the offense to go one way, and we're going to fake him out by turning right back around and throwing the screen that way. And you're asking your offense and your offensive line, which is not more talented than the Michigan defenders, to hold them as long as they, because it's asking a lot in that play. That's like one of those. I think it was maybe hoping for a touchdown, to tell you the truth. I think they were hoping that maybe we can crack one, and this is the way. But the percentages are just too low for that. So maybe if you want to do that on 3rd down, fine. But 4th down, it's the percentages were just way too low. So, But again, for the most part, I think Casey's done a really good job, and everybody is entitled for a bad day. But I think when we think about this game, and you guys do your post-game coverage in a few days, I think it all soak in that there were missed opportunities, but I'm not really that upset about the loss, because I think I would have been more upset, of course, if we were just steamrolled, and if it was like, oh man, we're just overmatched. This is like the last 2 years when we started 3-0. We're not as good as we thought. But no, we hung in there, and I think it leads me to believe that as long as they keep improving each week, like you were saying with those road games against Iowa and Wisconsin, well, why can't we win one of those games now? That they're not Michigan. We can win. We could just play a little bit better and improve by the time we get to those 2 road games. I think we could win one of them now, and I wasn't so sure about that a week ago.
Yeah, you got to think that, between going on the road to Wisconsin, home versus Michigan State, on the road to Indiana, on the road against Iowa, and home versus Maryland, you got to think there's at least 2 wins in that group of 5 games, because I still think Ohio State's going to be a big ask. I think Penn State's going to be a big ask.
Yes.
But if you can't beat 2 of those 5 teams, especially this year, Wisconsin's adjusting to a new offense. I knew last night they were beaten down on Purdue pretty good. But their first 3 games, they didn't look that great.
No.
Michigan State, they looked terrible. Like, they got beaten at home by 41 last week against a very good Washington team. But that's the type of team that the type of game where you expect it to be a little bit closer. Indiana hasn't looked great, even though they had that, they only lost by 20 to Ohio State opening day.
I believe so.
Iowa's looked bad. Maryland's looked okay. I don't know. I think there's at least 2 wins in that group of 5.
And the good thing is, and matter of fact, I think I see Gabe has no injuries, question mark. And I think that is a good point, that we've had some injury bad luck recently, and we haven't had that yet this year. Guys have been banged up. It happens. You miss a few guys, still haven't played yet. It happens. Not having Long out there is not good, but for the most part,
yeah, he'd be a great addition to this lineup. I mean, we're really missing a guy like Chris Long.
Yep. But for the most part, I mean, to know that guys will be back, and we haven't lost, some key guys, and now we're relying, because we're just not deep enough yet to rely on our third and fourth string guys. That's a good sign so far. I know it's early, but just get by Wagner real quick. Don't have any injuries, because you don't want anybody getting banged up against a high school team. Just take an early lead, 45-0 at halftime, or whatever you got to do, and just rest everybody and play all the backups and move on. So I'm pretty happy about it, but we'll see about getting these guys back, because you would guess that maybe we'll get Long back for Wisconsin, hopefully.
You would hope so. You hope he comes back 100%, because I don't know what his injury is, but I know he was healthy for a lot of this. He was healthy for the spring, and he was healthy for most of camp. So you got to hope that we get him back. I know Shiano has said that based on how they do injury reporting now, they're not going to discuss guys during the week unless they're out for the season. So it's a good sign that he hasn't gone out there and said somebody's out for the season or not. I have a hard time believing we're going to see a guy like Tyler Needham back at any point this year, given how hurt he looked against Virginia Tech when he got carted off, and the way that Shiano talked about him. It sounds like he's going to be one of those guys that's questionable every week, but probably doesn't play the rest of the year, or even if he does, it's probably the last few weeks of the season. But I think everyone else you'll see back at some point soon.
The other thing that I think they have to start doing at some point is, I mean, look, I don't know the status of Samuel Brown. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're still just slowly bringing him back, and he's never going to have that 100% label this season. I don't know. Or Monongai's red hot. We're going to keep going with him until we don't. But we really miss Brown in these situations, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
We need the big guy, because Monongai is too small to be asking him against a big Michigan team. Now, he can do it against the other teams we faced. But when you're playing the big boys at the Big Ten, you can't ask Monongai to be picking up 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 short all the time. He's just not that's just not his game. So, hopefully.
Yeah, another guy it was exciting to see back, though, was Aaron Young. He had a couple good runs. His first run of the game, he looked like he had fresh legs, and he went 14 yards on that first run, running over a few Michigan defenders. But I agree. Sam Brown would be that guy that you could put out there last year, especially. Do you remember how many times for the first, 4 or 5 games where it was just like, if anybody got touched behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage, that was it. They were just falling over. They were basically getting pushed down.
Yeah.
And then when Sam Brown started to get in the rotation more, it's like, oh, we have guys on this team who could actually make a guy miss. We have guys who, could fight and fall forward, turn a guy who got hit in the backfield to a 2-yard gain rather than a 3-yard loss. You really do miss a guy like him, because I think him and Monongai could form a nice 1-2 punch with guys like Aaron Young and Jashawn Benjamin playing that 3rd down, receiving back kind of role. But I don't feel like we've gotten the running back alchemy right this year yet. Despite the success we've seen from Monongai, I don't think we have that perfect balance yet in the backfield.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get that soon, because now that Young is back, if they feel Brown is almost ready, we got to start taking advantage. I don't know, because I guess we'll probably, and again, this is one of those things. Do you play Young and Brown, give him enough reps against Wagner just to get them going, almost like a preseason game? Like, let's use this game to kind of give them a little bit more reps. Or do you just feel, nah, it's not, I'm not going to risk it against this team? So that's going to be interesting to find out. I mean, what do you think? Do you think they should just go ahead and if they feel that these guys are close, to use this Wagner game as a game where let's give them some more reps. Let's double their reps.
I personally don't think you'll see a whole lot of guys who have had injuries in this season playing against Wagner. I don't think it's really necessary. I think you'll see a lot of young guys play. Like I think we'll see a lot of Al-Shadi Salam and Sean Benjamin. We'll start the game with Kyle Monungai, but I think you want to have a healthy Sam Brown when you get into the real thick of the schedule. Like this is the start of it, obviously, but Wagner is, the last bastion of bad teams left on the schedule. Maybe Indiana and Michigan State are bad, but they're still Big Ten teams. They still have Big Ten talent.
Yeah.
So I don't personally see Rutgers playing Sam Brown or Aaron Young probably into the second half. They'll get some touches, don't get me wrong, but I don't see them risking their health for the rest of the season against Wagner.
Is there a particular player that you think that, somebody you want to see that you haven't seen yet that you're like, hey, I want to see what this guy can do. I know we're not going to see him. Maybe he's a freshman. Maybe he's somebody who's only going to play, less than 4 games or 4 games max.
So I do, first off, I want to just point out how much I love the new redshirt rule where you can play up to 4 games and still retain that redshirt.
Yes.
Some guys that I do think will be exciting to see, who I've heard a lot of buzz about. I want to see more of Bo Mascow on defense, the defensive back. I want to see more of Abram Wright, the linebacker, on defense. I've heard really good things about both those guys.
Okay.
I think it'd be nice to establish Ian Strong this game. You saw that huge catch the opening game against Northwestern. He had a really nice catch today, but I feel like you got to find a way to really get him involved with the offense because he's one of the more talented skill position players we have on offense, but he's just not getting enough playing time. I really want to see a tight end breakout at some point.
Yeah, that's it.
Like we've heard good things about Sean Bowman. He hasn't really played well enough to kind of justify playing over Johnny. But what I mean is we've taken a lot of really toolsy tight ends over the past 3 classes. When you just take a look at Victor Konopka, Mike Higgins, and this most recent class we took a guy in Logan Blake. I just want to see one of those guys, run the seam for a 25-yard catch in coverage. Is that too difficult to ask? These guys are all 6'6", 6'7". Like these are guys you should be using as mismatches, and none of them seem to get on the field. So that's I want to see some tight end flashes. Another guy I'd like to see a little bit out of, I guess, in this game is Moses Walker. He hasn't gotten a ton of playing time, but he was one of the highest rated recruits Shiano's landed in the 2.0 era. He was the number one ranked recruit in the 22 class out of New York. And I just want to see him just dominate some people because he has, just size and speed that jumps off the tape in terms of what he was doing at Erasmus Hall. But he hasn't really, he tore his ACL in preseason last year. I think it was the spring, actually.
Yep.
He obviously took a red shirt. This year, I don't think he's played much at all. He's played on special teams, but he hasn't played in this linebacker rotation, which is all of a sudden, 3 really good players.
True.
Tyreen Powell, Mo Toure, and Deion Jennings. So those are some of the guys I'd like to see personally.
No, it's a good one. Moses Walker especially. Yeah, if we're going to see him play like extensive time and maybe end up with more snaps than any other linebacker, this would be the game. So
yep.
Let's give him a shot. But again, you never know with the injuries. That's another thing. We don't know. It's college. Yep. I heard that story. I was reading that story. I forget where I guess they're actually talking about having an injury report now for college. Did you see that?
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who don't know why injury reports even exist, like they were introduced into the NFL purely as a way to let gamblers know what was happening in terms of injuries. And college obviously is a huge betting market, and that's a big push, especially as these conferences get these bigger and bigger deals. You've seen the programming on, the morning shows or the game day shows, like there's so much gambling involved now. And so they want to kind of professionalize the injury reports, and the Big Ten's taking a leadership role in that. It feels a little scuzzy, but it's got to happen. Honestly, it's got to happen.
Yeah, it is. It's just too crazy. I mean, it's the one thing where for years you just keep looking on different sites and you're wondering, is there anybody out there that can give me some sort of consistent injury updates? And there just isn't, because nobody really knows, especially when you're being told certain things like, oh, yeah, Cam Rising, he's going to start against Oregon. So he's coming back against Baylor. He's coming back. And then all of a sudden you turn the game on. It's like, he's not even dressed. He's not even playing. I thought you said so. Yeah, that's it's from one end to the other end. It needs to they need to do a little bit better job. But you're right. I don't think I need to know every little detail. I just want to know if a guy playing or not. Is he starting or is he sitting? What is the situation? I mean, why not? Especially, I mean, can't we know if certain kids like Brown or Walker are there's some designation there that they're not 100%. I mean, how is that going to affect the opposition? I mean, they don't care. I mean, that's not going to be a
Yep.
big deal.
Yep.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know, and it's tough because in the NFL, you could, if you could institute a rule, you have a commissioner and you have all these billionaire owners. If a team breaks a rule, it's easy to punish that team. It's very hard to punish, Bowling Green for lying about their injury report. You know what I mean? Because sue the school, or you're going to fine the school. Like, it's a lot harder to legislate all that. But
I mean, I really do think that I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm guessing that in about, I don't know, maybe 10 years. I mean, it goes by fast, so maybe 10 years. College football is going to look a lot like the NFL as far as standings, and maybe there'll be two conferences and something like that, East, West. That's the direction it's going. And I can't wait to get there. Everything that's happening now is just so awful. The switching of here and going there, and it's just so confusing. But we're in the middle of it. But I think once we get to the other side, I think it should look a lot better.
So. Yeah, I totally agree. I think we've kind of exhausted almost everything. I'm reading through the chat here. If anyone's got a last second question, feel free to bring it up in the chat.
Because we don't really have a lot to say about Wagner. And next week's post game should be what time is the game? 12?
It's a 3:30 game, so the game should be over around 6:30, 7.
3:30 game with Wagner. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. And is that going to be, when is homecoming?
So homecoming, I'll just run through the next handful of games. So we got Wagner next week. It's at home, September 30th, 3:30 kickoff. It's going to be on BTN. The following Saturday, we play at Wisconsin. The time has not been announced yet, which is normally a good thing because they're kind of deciding whether it should be a tier 3, tier 2, or tier 1 game. So that's October 7th. October 14th is homecoming. That's versus Michigan State at noon.
Okay.
There's no TV carrier for that announced yet. If I had to guess, it's going to be on BTN, though. The following Saturday, we play at Indiana. That's also a noon kickoff. Then we have a bye week leading into a home game against Ohio State. So that's kind of the next month, the next 4 games on the schedule, or next 5 games on the schedule for Rutgers. So
no night games.
Very important stretch. No night games as of yet. I don't know how many opportunities we'll have for a night game the rest of the season either.
Yeah.
The only one would be, let's say hypothetically, Rutgers rolls into Ohio State at 6-2, and Ohio State is either 7-1 or undefeated. I can see that being a night game. But other than that, I can't see Maryland the Saturday after Thanksgiving being a night game. That's normally a noon kick. But if there was going to be another night game, it'd probably be Ohio State.
Okay. And we don't know yet with the Wisconsin whether or not that'll be a road night game or day game.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Time hasn't been announced for that one yet, but I would imagine that game. Usually they announce the time of games when it hasn't been announced well in advance. I believe like 2 weeks ahead of time, or if not 2 weeks, like 10 days or something like that. So we should get a time for Wisconsin this week.
Yeah. So when we do the pretty fast, I would imagine, post game show next week, we'll know what's going on with the Wisconsin game, and that's it really. If you look at it, between now and Ohio State, November 4th, there's just one big game on Rutgers' schedule, one, and we're going to be a disappointed fan base if we don't go into Ohio State with a 6-2 record.
As weird as that sounds, yeah, I'd say that's pretty dead on, because you should beat Michigan State at home and you should beat Indiana on the road, and I don't even want to say whether you should or shouldn't beat Wagner at home, but that's a given.
Well, the thing with
You
see
should
the way I
dominate
look
that
at it
team.
is if you can't beat the teams you're supposed to beat, well then then beat a team. I mean, yeah, if you can't beat a team you're not supposed to beat, like Wisconsin, then don't lose a game that you're not supposed to
Yeah.
lose. So,
Yep.
I mean, if they can just win that Wisconsin game, so that just shows you right there what a monster game that could be, based on the rest of their
Yeah. Yep.
schedule. If they can, because I just get the feeling after this game today that they have it in them. They can win one of these big games this year. I don't know when it's going to
I
be,
agree.
but I certainly hope they do. I'm willing to take a switch off. I'm willing to go win Wisconsin, lose Michigan State. I don't care. I just want the big win. I want the big win to hang our hat on. So when we're at the end of the season and we go bowling, we're a bowl team. And then don't forget, we had that big win against whoever. So I don't want to go to a bowl and then, and then look at our schedule. We beat all. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Going to a bowl is awesome from where we've been. But wouldn't it be just better, be legitimate if we went to a bowl and we actually beat a decent team? Not look at all our wins. We all beat teams that are not going bowling. Something like that. I don't. That's not really a whole lot of a successful season as far as I'm concerned. So.
Yeah, and I think that's the primary driver as to why basketball's popularity is shot through the roof, is because you go into every game with we could win this. We've beaten, number 1 Purdue on the road.
Yeah.
Like, we've upset teams. That's why I'm going to tune into every game and be excited for it.
Yeah.
Where Rutgers, when's the last time we've gone into a game as a serious underdog? And I'm not talking about a 3-point or a 4.5-point underdog and won the game. I can't remember the last time, honestly.
Statistically,
like time,
it was the Michigan State game.
That's true.
But that was only 11.
Year, and I think we were a 7.5-point dog going into Boston College last year. But
8, yep.
Beating Boston College doesn't even if both teams are 3-9. If you go into Wisconsin, a 3-9 Wisconsin team, and beat them as an 8-point dog, it means a whole lot more because it's in conference, because you play them more often than Boston College. Like, Boston College is, Boston College.
Yeah, sure.
For lack of a better term.
Yeah, we actually beat Michigan State and Purdue as 11-point dogs that year. That Purdue road game we had. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think right now with the Wisconsin line would be right now as of today?
As of today, I would say Rutgers would be 9.5-point dog, if I had to guess. Just totally shooting off the hip.
I'm pretty. Yeah, that's not bad. Because Wisconsin,
they're 3-1. No, they haven't done anything.
They get the week off.
They get the week off leading into the game, so they have
homecoming.
They have a bye next week, and then Rutgers is their homecoming game. They went into Purdue's house and beat them by 21. They did lose at Washington State, but I think Washington State's a sneaky team. Playoff contender this year.
They're legit.
I have them. They're somehow underdogs at home versus Oregon State. That Pullman's going to be a total zoo today. They play at 7:00, so 4 Eastern, at home versus Oregon State. They're a 3-point dog.
Yep. That's a good game.
If you guys are listening and want to get some action on a later game, that was my other best bet of the week, was Washington State money line. So I had Rutgers 24.5 points.
24.5
on the spread. And
gotta love it.
I don't care if it's a half-point cover,
it works.
Or if it's a 30-point cover. They
win's
cover.
A win.
Yep.
Well, because let's remember, Wisconsin, that was a 21-14 game at one point, and Georgia Southern. No, actually, Georgia Southern might have been winning that game, 14-7, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Wisconsin had a 21-14 lead. Georgia Southern was inside their territory, and they couldn't score. The total yards in that game, Georgia Southern outgained Wisconsin.
Wow.
455 to 451 yards. And that was, of course.
And sometimes that could be deceiving. Like last week, Virginia Tech outgained us too. if you look at how we scored that game, it was like a lot of short fields. That game never really felt like at one point. I'm not gonna lie, I felt Rutgers was seeing the game slip away from them, but I didn't actually think at any point Rutgers was going to lose. Like Rutgers didn't have the, wasn't playing from behind at any point. So I don't know.
Yeah, but that was at least in that particular game, and you're absolutely right. You shouldn't, especially in games where teams are like, especially like things like pass defense. If you've given up like 400 yards of passing in the game, but hey, we won the game 70-21. We allowed all those passing yardage, that kind of stuff. But it was at least it was a game that when you're leading, like Georgia Southern was 14-7, and it was tied at 14 mid third quarter, then that's a football game. I'm okay with that. That's telling me that because their quarterback threw for 383 yards. Mordecai hasn't gotten going yet. Except did he have a good game last night? Let me see.
He was good on the ground last night. He didn't really have a great night passing, but I know he had at least 2 rushing touchdowns.
174 last night through the air. That was his season low. No touchdowns and a pick. So he has not been. That passing game is not. Rutgers, if you're going to beat Wisconsin, it's believe it or not, it's like the old days, which is last year. You have to stop the running game.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's in 2 weeks. We'll talk more about that on next week's show. I'm sure you guys talk a lot about it in the next couple of weeks leading up to Camp Randall. So, Mike, appreciate you stepping in for Richie. Hopefully he's enjoying his wedding, post-wedding festivities.
Yeah, it's not his wedding. He's not getting married. He's at a wedding.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify for everybody out there. But I also want to thank everybody for listening, all the questions in the chat. I hope we got to all you guys, at least, if not directly, indirectly through stuff we've talked about. Thanks to everybody who sent a super chat as well. We really appreciate you guys coming on, and I hope we provide some coverage that you're not getting anywhere else in these post-game shows. But for me and Greg and Richie, who's not here, and everybody else at TKR, sorry. I always get that mixed up now that Knights of the Road are around. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time.